The world was perfect. I mean, not the whole world. That place is a dumpster fire. But my world, the one contained within the 10-foot wide, 2-foot deep, 49.99 vinyl walls of the Blue Lagoon Deluxe inflatable pool, was an oasis of pure, unadulterated bliss. It was 102 degrees in Maple Grove, Texas. That's not, "Oh, it's a hot one," heat. That's, "I think I saw the devil buying a Slurpee," heat. It's, "The sidewalk is a griddle," heat. And in this suburban hellscape, my little blue Ziploc bag of a pool was paradise. I had a lukewarm beer balanced on my chest, my feet were submerged in 78-degree tap water, and the sun was just starting to dip behind Gary in number 4's aggressively large satellite dish. What could possibly go wrong? Click. I froze. It was a sound that didn't belong. It wasn't a bird. It wasn't the sizzle of a bug hitting my neighbor's zapper. It was the sharp, synthetic shutter of a smartphone camera. I craned my neck. My beer wobbled, creating a tiny, chlorinated tidal wave. 3 houses down. Standing on her perfectly manicured, ryegrass in summer how-is-that-even-possible lawn, was Brenda. Brenda, our HOA president. The woman who measures lawn height with a ruler and refers to the color beige as a lifestyle. She was wearing her usual battle uniform, a khaki visor, a pink polo shirt tucked into pleated white shorts, and white sneakers so clean they looked like they'd been bleached by the souls of the damned. And in her hand, she wasn't just holding a phone. She was holding it up, aimed directly at me, like a tiny rectangular sniper rifle. She was taking pictures of me in my pool. "Oh, son of a," I muttered, sinking lower into the water, which now felt less like an oasis and more like a brightly colored piece of evidence. Brenda didn't just walk. She marched. Her knees snapped up to a perfect 90-degree angle with every step. She moved with the relentless, unfeeling purpose of a Terminator sent from the future to eliminate unapproved lawn gnomes. She didn't come into my yard. She wouldn't dare. She stopped at the precise property line, a tiny patch of dirt where my sad, patchy St. Augustine's gave up, and her emerald green kingdom began. And she was holding a clipboard. A clipboard. Who under the age of 60 and not a medical professional uses a clipboard? "Frank, good afternoon." Her voice could cut glass. "Brenda." I gave her my best, most neighborly smile, which I'm sure just looked like a grimace. "Enjoying the heat? It's a real scorcher." "Frank, I'm sure you're aware of Article 4, Section 9 of the Maple Grove Homeowner Association Covenants, Conditions, and Restrictions." I blinked, the lukewarm beer water dripping from my hair. "The what? No, I think I used that part of the binder to prop up a wobbly table leg in the garage." She inhaled sharply, a little hiss of disapproval. "I'm not surprised. It states, and I quote," she actually adjusted her glasses, "no temporary structures, including but not limited to sheds, tents, playground equipment, or..." She paused here, tapping the page with a perfectly manicured, clear, polished fingernail. "Above-ground swimming pools shall be erected or maintained upon any lot." I looked at the Blue Lagoon Deluxe. I looked back at Brenda. "Brenda, come on. This isn't an above-ground swimming pool. This is a glorified, oversized Ziploc bag. It cost me $50 at the Walmart. It cost less than that thing." I pointed to the stone gargoyle on her porch. "That thing," she said, her voice dropping a full octave, is an approved lawn feature, Frank, submitted in triplicate to the Architectural Review Committee in 2019. This, she gestured with her entire clipboard, an act of supreme disdain, is an eyesore. It's lowering property values as we speak. It's 102 degrees, Brenda. The community pool is it's a human soup. It's 90% sunscreen, 10% Band-Aids, and the rest is just children. I refuse to join the human soup. Your personal hygiene preferences do not supersede the covenants, she snapped. I'm issuing a formal citation. You have 24 hours to abate the violation. That means remove it. Or what? I challenged, feeling a stupid surge of suburban bravery. Or, she said, pulling a pre-written citation from the clipboard's death grip, the fines begin. $50 for the first day, $100 for the second. Compounding. Compounding? Was this an HOA violation or a high-interest car loan? She didn't hand me the citation. She didn't even try. She just marched up my driveway, stuck it to my front door with a piece of tape that I knew she brought with her for this exact purpose, and marched back to her beige palace. The thwack of the paper hitting the door echoed across the silent, scorching yard. I just sat there. The water was getting warm. The beer was hot. My kingdom, my Blue Lagoon Deluxe, had been conquered. My wife, Sarah, came out onto the porch, drawn by the sound of Brenda's voice. What was that all about? Did she see you using the charcoal grill again? Worse, I said, pointing a wet, defeated finger at the citation on the door. We're criminals, Sarah. Our reign of terror is over. The Blue Lagoon Deluxe has to go. I sat in the sad, slowly deflating pool, my spirit as limp as the vinyl walls would be in an hour. But I wasn't just defeated. I was inspired. A tiny, petty, waterlogged seed of an idea was being planted. Oh, Brenda wanted me to abate the violation? I'd abate it. And then I'd find a new violation, a better one, a permanent one. That night, the house was quiet. Sarah was asleep. The kids were at their grandparents'. The air conditioning was humming a desperate, losing battle against the residual heat of the day. And I was in my war room, which is to say I was sitting cross-legged on the living room floor, surrounded by 3 inches of paper. I had retrieved the Maple Grove Homeowner, Association covenants, conditions, and restrictions. It wasn't a binder. It was a tome. It was 3-ring bound, white, and weighed more than my cat. It smelled like stale office paper and despair? Yes, definitely despair. I'm pretty sure it was printed on paper made from the pulverized dreams of people who just wanted to paint their front door a nice, unapproved forest green. This is insane, I muttered, sipping a cup of coffee that was 90% caffeine, 10% spite. Sarah padded into the room, rubbing her eyes. Frank, it's 2 a.m. What are you doing? I'm reading, Sarah, I said, not looking up. I'm educating myself. Did you know? Did you know that Article 6, Section 2, subsection B, states that all basketball hoops must be fully collapsed and stored out of public view by 8 p.m.? Frank, and did you also know, I continued, my voice rising, that holiday decorations, and they put that in quotes, Sarah, in quotes, may not be erected more than 30 days prior to the holiday, and must be removed within 14 days after? Brenda cited Gary in number 4 last February for his lingering icicle lights. Lingering. Sarah sat on the couch, pulling a blanket around her. She had that look, that My husband is a maniac, but I am too tired to stop him, look. Honey, just let it go. It's a $50 pool. I don't know, but we'll get a sprinkler. The kids like sprinklers. A sprinkler? I said, my voice flat. A sprinkler. No, Sarah, this isn't about the pool anymore. This isn't even about the heat. This is about... It's about justice. It's about freedom. It's about the fact that I will not be defeated by a woman who weaponizes beige paint chips. So your plan is to... what? Read her to death? My plan, I said, turning a page with a vicious rip, is to find a loophole. I kept reading. Section 5, fencing. Blah blah, no chain link. Wood must be treated. Shadow box style only. Section 6, signage. No political signs. One for sale sign allowed. No beware of dog signs. What? My eyes were blurring. The coffee was making my hands shake. I was about to give up. And then I saw it. Section 7. Landscaping and natural features. My heart skipped. I read on. Section 7, Article 9. Grass height must not exceed 3 inches. Article 10. All shrubbery must be of an approved non-invasive species. Article 11. Fountains, statuary, and other decorative elements must be submitted for approval. Blah, blah, blah. Wait. Section 7, Article 12. Permanent in-ground water features, including but not limited to fountains and fish ponds, are encouraged as they promote a tranquil and natural environment and enhance the aesthetic harmony of the community. I read it once. I read it twice. I read it a third time, my finger tracing the words. Encouraged. Permanent. Fish ponds. I looked up at Sarah. A slow, manic grin was spreading across my face. Sarah, I whispered, my voice hoarse. Sarah, I've got it. Got what? A headache? A loophole. A beautiful, glorious, water-filled loophole. Brenda banned my pool, but she can't ban my fish pond. Sarah stared at me. A fish pond? Frank, we can't even keep a cactus alive. You killed a succulent. A succulent. They're literally 90% water. It's not about the fish, Sarah. It's about the pond. It's about promoting a tranquil and natural environment. It's about a permanent water feature that Brenda can't do a single blessed thing about. I grabbed my laptop from the coffee table, shoving the binder aside. What are you doing? Sarah asked, her voice laced with a new kind of dread. I'm Googling, I said, my fingers flying across the keyboard. KOIPOND. I wasn't looking at the little prefab plastic bowls you get at the hardware store. Oh no. I was looking at koi ponds, the kind with waterfalls, the kind with giant, mossy boulders, the kind with filtration systems that looked like they belonged in a small-town water treatment plant. I turned the laptop toward her. Honey, what do you think of a meditation garden? You don't meditate, Frank. You fall asleep during the commercials for 60 minutes. I will meditate, I said, my voice filled with a newfound, holy purpose. I'll meditate so hard right in Brenda's face. I'll be the most tranquil son of a gun in Maple Grove. And I'm filling out the application. I pulled up the HOA's Digital Architectural Review Committee application form. Project type, landscaping. Materials to be used. Natural stone, water, tranquility. Project description, I typed, savoring every single keystroke. Installation of a modest, natural koi pond designed to promote a zen-like atmosphere of contemplation and enhance the aesthetic harmony of the community, per Article 7, Section 12. I hit submit. Frank, Sarah said, burying her face in her hands. What have you done? I've started a war, honey, I said, closing the laptop with a decisive snap. A very, very tranquil war. The email came 3 days later. Dear Mr. Franklin, it began. The Architectural Review Committee has reviewed your application for a modest, natural koi pond and is pleased to inform you that your project is approved. I printed it. I laminated it. I almost framed it. I saw Brenda at the community mailbox. I waved the laminated approval sheet at her. Frank, she said, her eyes narrowing to tiny, suspicious slits. Brenda, I beamed, radiating pure, unadulterated zen. Good news! The committee approved my little meditation garden. I'm enhancing the aesthetic harmony of the community. The way she gripped her handful of Bed Bath & Beyond coupons, I was genuinely afraid she was going to rip them in half. She wanted to say something. She wanted to tell me it was a bad idea, but she couldn't. The committee, in her brief absence, she was at a regional HOA leadership summit in Dallas, if you can believe it, had approved it. The committee's decision was final. How nice, she said, through teeth so clenched I'm surprised they didn't shatter. I trust it will be tasteful. Oh, the most tasteful, I said. Just a little puddle for contemplation. She marched off, her white sneakers squeaking with repressed rage. Phase 1 was complete. Now I just had to find someone to build a puddle. This, it turned out, was the hard part. I called Elegant Water Gardens. A very bored-sounding woman put me on hold for 10 minutes, listening to a loop of Enya, before telling me their wait list for new clients was 18 months. And, she added, do you have a budget in mind? Our tranquility packages begin at $30,000. I hung up. I called Zen Ponds, Inc. The guy who answered just laughed. A modest pond? In Maple Grove? Buddy, unless your budget is over 6 figures, I'm not even driving out. You know what the permits are like? I didn't have the heart to tell him I was planning on using an HOA approval as a permit. I was getting desperate. It was 103 degrees. My lawn was dying. My dream of petty revenge was dying with it. Then, I found it. On a local forum, tucked between an ad for lightly used baby clothes and a post titled, "Is my neighbor stealing my Wi-Fi?" I saw a listing. Rock and water excavation. We dig. You pay. No job too weird. The phone number was local. I called. A man who sounded like he was gargling gravel answered on the first ring. Yeah? Hi, I said. I saw your ad. I'm looking to get a pond dug. A pond, like for fish or, a pond. Fish. Definitely fish. Koi, maybe? I want it to be Zen? There was a long pause. Zen, right. Dale, he wants Zen. We can do Zen. We'll be there in 20. He hung up. Exactly 20 minutes later, a truck pulled up. It wasn't a truck. It was a beast. It was a late 80s Ford, a color I'd call Rust-Oleum's nightmare, with tires that were probably illegal in 30 states. It rattled to a stop, the engine dieseling for a full 10 seconds after the key was turned off, and a cloud of blue smoke belched from the tailpipe. 2 guys got out. The first guy, the driver, was all wiry energy. He was wearing a grease-stained t-shirt that said, "I'd rather be welding," jeans and boots. He had a pencil-thin mustache, a missing front tooth, and he was already talking before his feet hit the curb. Frank, Skeeter, that's Dale. The second guy, Dale, was the size of a refrigerator, maybe 2. He was wearing overalls, a flannel shirt, in 103-degree heat, I might add, and a trucker hat that just said big. He didn't get out of the truck so much as he unfolded himself from it. He just nodded. "Hey guys," I said, feeling wildly out of my depth. "Thanks for coming so fast. I'm Frank. This is the yard." Skeeter looked around, chewing on an unlit toothpick. He walked across my sad brown grass, kicking at the dirt. Dale just stood by the truck, arms crossed, looking at my house like he was calculating its load-bearing capacity. "So," I said, trying to sound like I knew what I was talking about, "I'm looking to get a koi pond. I was thinking, maybe here?" I pointed to a 10-by-10 patch of weeds. "Something modest, maybe 500 gallons. You know, for tranquility." Skeeter burst out laughing. It was a wheezing, hacking sound. 500? Chief, my bathtub is 500 gallons. That ain't a pond, that's a puddle. You can't get zen from a puddle. Dale, he wants 500 gallons, that's cute." Dale just shook his head, a slow head motion. "Oh," I said, I thought, what do you recommend?" Skeeter's eyes lit up. He stopped chewing the toothpick and pointed at me with it. "You want koi? Koi are fish, Chief. They're like water pigs. They need water. They need depth. You want zen? You need a waterfall." I blinked. "A waterfall?" "Oh yeah, a waterfall. Or," he said, looking around, "maybe 2 waterfalls. You got a neighbor you don't like?" My God, he was a mind reader. "As a matter of fact, I do. 3 doors down. Brenda, pink polo, khaki visor. You can't miss her." Skeeter grinned. The missing tooth made it a spectacular, terrifying sight. Brenda, Dale, you remember Brenda?" Dale nodded, his first sign of real emotion. A low rumble came from his chest. "Parked too close to her sidewalk." "That's the one," Skeeter cackled. "Called the cops on us. Said our truck was leaking on her precious concrete. We're gonna build this man a waterfall, Dale. No, we're gonna build him a river, a roaring river. She'll hear that zen from her kitchen. She'll hear it in her sleep." This was not the modest puddle I had envisioned. This was something more. "So, what are we talking?" I asked, my voice a little weak. Skeeter was in the zone. He was pacing my yard, waving his arms. "Okay, here's the play. We're not digging a hole, Chief. We're building a habitat. We're gonna need a backhoe." A backhoe? In my yard? Skeeter, my gate is only 4 feet wide." "We'll take the fence down. Don't worry about it. Dale's a surgeon with that thing. He'll dig you a 10,000-gallon hole before lunch. Then we need boulders, not them little pebbles you get from the big box store. I'm talking boulders. I know a guy. They'll be the size of, I don't know. What's that little car you got? A Mini Cooper? Yeah. We'll get you some boulders the size of a Mini Cooper. We'll need a crane. Then we need the guts. You need a biofall. You need a skimmer. You need a 2-horsepower pump to get that waterfall roaring. You don't want a tinkle, Chief. You want a boom. You want Niagara Falls of North Texas." My modest fish pond was dead. In its place, an aquatic stadium was rising. "My God," I whispered, the vision taking shape. This is going to be expensive, isn't it?" Skeeter slung a surprisingly heavy arm over my shoulder. "Frank," he said, his voice now low and serious. "You're not paying for a pond. You're paying for a statement. You're paying for peace of mind." He winked, a fast conspiratorial gesture. "You're paying for revenge." He knew. He truly got me. "When?" I said, my voice firm. "Can you start?" Skeeter grinned. "We'll be here Monday, 7 a.m. sharp." And Frank? Yeah? You're gonna need to warn the neighbors. Monday morning, 6:59 a.m. I was on my porch, in my robe, holding a coffee mug the size of my head. I was vibrating with a mixture of caffeine and nervous, ecstatic energy. The air was still, hot, and thick. Monday morning, 7 o'clock a.m. on the dot. The world exploded. It wasn't a truck. It was a lowboy flatbed, the kind you see hauling tanks on the highway. And it was loud. The brake hiss, and the rumble, rumble, rumble of the diesel engine shook my windows. My coffee mug vibrated, creating little ripples on the surface, and on the back of this flatbed, chained down like a prehistoric beast, was a yellow backhoe. It wasn't a backyard backhoe. It was a build-a-shopping mall backhoe. It was, in a word, glorious. One by one, lights started flicking on in the houses around me. Bedroom windows were sliding open. The entire neighborhood was awake. And there, on her porch, in a silk robe that probably cost more than my car, was Brenda. She was holding her world's best HOA president coffee mug. Her face was a mask of sleepy confusion, which quickly morphed into pure, unadulterated horror as the flatbed driver started unchaining the dinosaur. I took a long, slow sip of my coffee. I raised my mug to her, a silent, "Cheers." "Morning, Brenda," I yelled, my voice full of cheer. "Beautiful day for landscaping." She didn't wave back. She just stared. Her mouth was open. Skeeter hopped out of his rust bucket truck, which he'd parked directly in front of Brenda's mailbox. Dale was already on the flatbed, firing up the backhoe. The whoomp of the engine starting was followed by a plume of black smoke. "Morning, Chief," Skeeter yelled, slapping me on the back. "Ready to make some zen?" Dale, it turned out, was not a surgeon. He was a god. He didn't just take down my fence, he disassembled it. With the backhoe, he plucked each 8-foot section from the posts as delicately as a bird building a nest, stacking them neatly on the side of my house. Then, he drove the backhoe into my backyard. My yard was gone. In 10 minutes, my yard, my sad, patchy grass, my weeds, it was all just mud. Dale was a marvel. He operated the 2 joysticks with a kind of fluid grace you wouldn't expect from a man the size of a vending machine. With every scoop and dump, the hole got bigger. And bigger. And bigger. Skeeter was directing, which mostly involved him leaning on a shovel, drinking a big gulp at 7:30 a.m., and yelling, "Deeper, Dale, we're going for koi dimensions." I was in awe. The hole was no longer a pond. It was a crater. It looked like a meteor had taken a personal dislike to my backyard. I'm pretty sure I could see the glow of the Earth's core. "That," I said to Skeeter, "is a big hole." "That," Skeeter said, "is a 10,000-gallon statement, Chief. Now we just gotta find the, right. What? That." I followed his gaze. In the bottom of the pit, where Dale had just taken another massive scoop, something was hissing. It was a thin, white PVC pipe, and as we watched, the hiss was joined by a gurgle. And then with a sound like a dragon clearing its throat, the giss gurgle became a geyser. A 15-foot-tall plume of cold, clean water erupted from the bottom of my moon crater. "Ah," Skeeter said again, calm as can be. "Right. That's your sprinkler line. I told Dale to watch for the sprinkler line. Dale, from the cab of the backhoe, just shrugged and turned the engine off. The sudden silence, broken only by the whooshing of 50 gallons a minute, was deafening. "Well," I said, my voice cracking, "my pond is filling up." "Yeah," Skeeter said. "We're gonna have to fix that." My great hole was now the great mud pit. Water was cascading out of the hole and forming a small, muddy river that was heading directly for my neighbor's prize-winning petunias. And then I heard it. The sound I knew was coming. A distant, beautiful whoop-whoop of a police siren. Of course Brenda called them. 2 squad cars rolled up, lights flashing, which in our neighborhood is the equivalent of a 21-gun salute. A young officer, someone I'd never seen before, got out. His name tag said Davis. He looked young, tired, and deeply, deeply annoyed to be here. He walked up to me, carefully avoiding the new river on my lawn. "Sir," he said, "are you the homeowner?" "That's me, officer," I said, trying to radiate responsible citizen. "Frank, we're just doing some landscaping." Officer Davis looked at the geyser. He looked at the moon crater. He looked at the backhoe. "Sir, we got a call about an unpermitted industrial excavation, and a geyser, and a man building a fracking site?" From her porch, Brenda shrieked. "He's flooding us, officer! He's fracking! I demand you shut him down! He's destabilizing the very foundations of our homes!" "I'm not fracking," I yelled back. "I'm landscaping." Skeeter, who was now covered in mud from the knees down, strolled over, holding a large wrench. "Just a flesh wound, officer. Little plumbing mix-up, I got it. We'll have this zen back on track in no time." Officer Davis sighed. It was a sigh that contained the weary souls of every civil servant who has ever had to deal with an HOA dispute. "Sir, I'm going to need to see your permit for this." He waved his hand at the general disaster area. This was the moment. I reached into my robe pocket and pulled out my laminated, beautiful, glorious piece of paper. "Permit, officer? You mean this permit?" I handed it to him. "Approved by the Maple Grove Architectural Review Committee. Modest natural koi pond. Section 7, Article 12. It's encouraged. We're enhancing the aesthetic harmony of the community." Officer Davis looked at the paper. He looked at the 15-foot geyser. He looked back at the paper. "Sir," he said, rubbing the bridge of his nose. "This says modest fish pond. This," he pointed to the scene from Armageddon unfolding in my backyard. "This is not modest by any stretch of the imagination." "It's a matter of interpretation, isn't it?" I offered. "Modest for a king." He stared at me. I could see him calculating the paperwork. I could see him weighing his options. "Frank," he said, handing the paper back. "This is a civil matter. It's an HOA issue. I can't arrest you for a big hole. But just, can you please turn the water off? You're flooding Mrs. Henderson's petunias." "On it, officer," I said, giving him a salute. "Total misunderstanding. We'll find the shut-off valve right now." He sighed again, got back in his car, and drove away. The second cop never even got out of his. Brenda was seething. She was vibrating. She had been denied her victory. I looked at Skeeter. Skeeter looked at me. The geyser continued to roar. "Okay," Skeeter said, spitting his toothpick into the mud. "So the good news is we found your main water line. The bad news is we found it with a backhoe. Dale, grab the shovels. We're going in." The yard was a war zone, and we were just getting started. The next 3 weeks were a blur of noise, mud, and money. My backyard was no longer a yard, it was the site. The modest puddle was a distant, hilarious memory. We were now in the Pyramids of Giza phase of construction, and I was its slightly less tyrannical pharaoh. The water line was fixed, but the incident had broken something in me. The part of my brain that handles impulse control and financial responsibility, it was gone. It had been excavated, along with 10,000 gallons of Texas clay. I was in too deep. I couldn't stop. "Frank, the hole's lined," Skeeter yelled one morning, holding up a piece of thick, black rubber. "Now for the fun part." The fun part, it turned out, was the boulders. I had pictured rocks. You know, nice, round, landscaping rocks. What arrived was not rocks. What arrived was a flatbed truck, struggling under the weight of 5 objects that looked like they had been chipped off the side of Mount Rushmore. "Skeeter," I said, my voice a hollow whisper. Those aren't boulders. Those are asteroids." "Aren't they beauties?" he beamed. "I told my guy, Tony," I said, "Tony, I need rocks that scream power. These scream power, Chief." "They're the size of my Mini Cooper," I said. "Bigger," he said, slapping one. "This one's Bertha. And that one," he pointed to a jagged gray monster, "is Clint. He's got attitude." A crane was required. A crane. A bright red 50-ton mobile crane rolled up my street, and my neighbors, who had just gotten used to the backhoe, came out in force. Brenda was there, of course. She was filming. I waved. For 6 hours, a man named Terry, who was the crane operator, and Dale, who was the ground man, and Skeeter, who was the visionary, proceeded to play the world's most expensive and dangerous game of Jenga in my backyard. "A little to the left, Terry," Skeeter would yell, over the groan of the crane's engine. "Make it look natural, like God just dropped it there. Yeah, perfect." Thud. The ground shook. A glass fell off a shelf inside my house. And Skeeter was a master of the upsell. He was an evil genius of scope creep. "Chief, while we got the crane," he said, sidling up to me while Clint dangled menacingly over my roof. "You know what would look great right there?" He pointed to the top of the newly built waterfall. "A diving rock." "Skeeter," I said, trying to be the voice of reason. "It's a koi pond. It's going to be 4 feet deep. You can't dive into a koi pond." "Not with that attitude, you can't," he said, shaking his head. "It's not for diving. It's for perching. You perch on it. You contemplate. It's, what's that word? Zen." An hour later, I was the proud owner of a 1,000-pound granite perching rock. "And the waterfall," he said, staring at the main one. I'm just not feeling it." "What do you mean? It's 6 feet tall." "Yeah, but it's just one waterfall. It's lonely. You know what a waterfall needs, Frank? It needs a friend. We're gonna need 2. "2? A his and hers, a yin and a yang, one for tranquility and one for—" He lowered his voice. "Business. Brenda's gonna hate 'em both. Dale, fire up the cement mixer. We're building a friend." The original quote, which Skeeter had scribbled on the back of a gas station receipt, was a distant, fond memory. We had left new car money in the dust after the geyser incident. We were now deep into down payment on a condo money and rapidly approaching send a kid to a decent state college for a year money. My life became a series of frantic, whispered phone calls, No, honey, of course I'm not buying another boulder. It's a filtration system. It's essential. Yes, officer. I know the crane is blocking Mr. Henderson's driveway. We're almost done. Contemplating. And then came the call. The one I'd been dreading. Frank? It was Sarah. Her voice was calm. Too calm. Hi, honey. I just got a call from our credit card company. Fraud alert. Oh, haha, that's crazy, honey. They just wanted to know, she continued, her voice like ice, if we had suddenly taken up professional quarrying. Frank, what did you buy? I looked at the pallet of premium underwater LED lighting that had just been delivered. It's a skimmer, Sarah, a premium skimmer. You can't just have leaves and stuff floating around in your tranquil pond. It's not zen. This isn't zen, Frank, she yelled, her voice finally breaking. This is apocalypse now. There is a crane in our yard. There is a porta-potty on our lawn. And I'm pretty sure Dale is living in his truck. He's very efficient, I argued. The neighborhood was, as predicted, descending into civil war. My yard was a tourist attraction. People were slowing down their cars, taking pictures. I was a local legend. But Brenda was not taking this lying down. The citations started. Noise violation. Operation of heavy machinery before 8 a.m. It was 7:59, I checked. Property debris. Mud on sidewalk. Unapproved boulders. I sent her a copy of my laminated approval. Unauthorized landscaping personnel. I had no idea what that even meant. She was waging a paper war. But two could play at that game. I had, after all, read the entire binder. The next HOA meeting was packed. It was in the community center clubhouse, which smelled like stale popcorn and industrial-strength cleaner. Brenda was at the front, running the meeting with her usual iron-fisted, beige-gloved hand. And finally, she said, we need to discuss Frank's project. I'm glad you brought that up, Brenda, I said, standing up. I had a folder. Because I'm concerned. I'm concerned about the aesthetic harmony of this community. Brenda looked surprised. This was not on her agenda. I was doing some contemplating, I said, and I happened to walk by Gary and number 4's house, and I noticed his mailbox. A gasp went through the room. Gary turned pale. Brenda, I'm sure you're aware, I said, that Article 9, Section 3 states that all mailboxes must be antique beige. Paint code 405A. Gary's mailbox. I paused for dramatic effect. Is desert sand. It's anarchy, I tell you. Anarchy. And Mrs. Henderson. I turned. Your approved petunias, are they invasive? They look invasive to me. They're sprawling, Mrs. Henderson. Sprawling. The meeting devolved into chaos. People were yelling about mailboxes, about shrubbery, about the unauthorized use of a slightly too bright welcome mat. Brenda was banging her gavel. Order! Order! I sat down, a quiet, zen-like smile on my face. Skeeter was right. This wasn't a pond. It was a statement. And my statement was, if I'm going down, I'm taking all of you desert sand traitors with me. The war had new fronts. And back at home, my fortress was almost complete. It was done. The porta-potty was gone. The backhoe was gone. The crane, the cement mixer, and the battalion of flatbed trucks were gone. Skeeter, Dale, and their rust bucket of doom were, after a very large and possibly incriminating cash payment, also gone. In my backyard, where a sad patch of St. Augustine's once stood, there was now a lake. The modest pond had officially become a 10,000-gallon, granite-lined, multi-level aquatic marvel. The two waterfalls, Tranquility and Business, were roaring. The underwater premium LED lights were set to a tasteful ocean blue glow. The perching rock loomed over it all, a silent, moss-covered sentinel. "Well," I said to Sarah, who was staring at it from the kitchen window. "Time to add water." "You're not using the hose, are you?" she asked. "Of course I'm using the hose. What else would I—" 2 days. It took 2 solid days, 48 consecutive hours, of my garden hose running at full blast to fill the puddle. My water meter was spinning like a top. I'm pretty sure the city of Maple Grove was about to declare a drought. My water bill was going to look less like a bill and more like a ransom note. But when it was full, and the water was clear, and I finally hit the switch on the main pump, my God, the sound was indescribable. It wasn't a tinkle. It wasn't a gurgle. It was a roar. It was the sound of a 6-lane highway condensed into a 20 by 20 space. It was the sound of 200 gallons a minute cascading over Clint and Bertha and Business. It was glorious. I can't hear the TV," Sarah yelled from inside the house. "It's Zen, honey," I yelled back, tears in my eyes. But it was missing something. It was a beautiful, deafeningly loud, and astronomically expensive pond. It was not yet a koi pond. I was in too deep to not get fish. I didn't go to the local pet store. Oh no. My habitat, as Skeeter called it, deserved more. I went online. I went to places with names like Imperial Koi and Zen Nippon Fish. I learned a new language. Kohaku, Sanke, Showa, Ginrin. I didn't just buy fish. I bought show-grade Ginrin Kohaku and a butterfly fin asagi. They cost more than my first car. I'm not kidding. They were shipped overnight in giant, oxygen-filled bags, packed in styrofoam containers that looked like they were designed for transporting human organs. I spent an hour acclimating them, floating the bags in the water. I felt like a nervous new father. "Welcome home, fellas," I whispered to Big Red and Spot. "Welcome to Fort Tranquility." It was a Saturday. The sun was shining. The waterfalls were roaring. It was time for the grand opening. I was on my deck, a beer in hand. Sarah was actually out there with me. Even she had to admit it was impressive. "See?" I said, gesturing to my kingdom. "Tranquility, aesthetic harmony. It's beautiful." "It's loud," she said. "But it is beautiful, Frank. I'll give you that. You're still a lunatic, but—" "Frank!" The voice cut through the roar of the waterfalls like a serrated knife. Brenda. She was marching over. This was it. The final showdown. She hadn't said a word since the HOA meeting. She had been plotting. And now she was here to see the finished product. She stopped at her property line, as always. She was clutching her clipboard. Her face was pale. "What? In God's name? Have you done?" she whispered, her voice full of awe and horror. I took a sip of my beer. "It's a koi pond, Brenda. Article 7, Section 12. It's encouraged. We're promoting a natural environment. Can't you just feel the aesthetic harmony?" The business waterfall chose that moment to splash extra hard. "It's "It's deafening," she yelled over the roar. "It sounds like a freeway. I'm going to have you cited for noise pollution." "It's white noise, Brenda," I yelled back. "It's soothing. You just have to listen to it. Let the zen wash over you." It's obscene," she shrieked. "It's grotesque." "It's art," I countered. She was about to literally explode. I could see the vein in her temple throbbing. She was raising her clipboard to, I don't know, smite me with it? And then a shadow passed over the yard. A large shadow. "What the?" I said. "A great blue heron, a bird I thought only existed in National Geographic documentaries, a bird with a 6-foot wingspan and legs like stilts, landed on my $500 perching rock." It tilted its head. It looked at the pristine, 10,000-gallon habitat. It saw Big Red, my $1,200 show-grade kohaku, swimming placidly near the surface. The bird's head moved. It wasn't a move. It was a strike. It was a blur of gray and yellow. Stab. It pulled Big Red out of the water. The fish, my investment, my pride and joy, didn't even flop. The heron just tilted its head back and swallowed my $12,200 fish. Whole. In one gulp. Right in front of me. My mouth was open. My beer was frozen halfway to my lips. I heard a small noise from the side of the house, where Skeeter had quietly come by to check the pump. He was just watching. "Whoa," Skeeter said, his voice full of reverence. "Circle of life, Chief. That's metal." I looked at Brenda. My face was a mask of pure, unadulterated, soul-crushing horror. I had just opened the world's most expensive sushi buffet for birds. Brenda looked at the heron, which was now preening on Clint. She looked at my face. She looked back at the heron, and Brenda laughed. It wasn't a ha-ha laugh. It wasn't a mean laugh. It was a deep, genuine, I can't believe this is happening belly laugh. She laughed so hard she had to put her hand on her knee. "Well, Frank," she finally choked out, wiping a tear from her eye. "Looks like your natural environment is also a non-native bird buffet. Enjoy your zen." She turned, still chuckling, and marched back to her house. I just stood there. The waterfalls roared. The heron, Clarence, I had just named him, let out a victorious squawk. I had been defeated, not by the HOA, not by Brenda, but by a stupid, long-legged $12,200 fish-eating dinosaur. My life had a new nemesis. Brenda was old news. My war with the HOA was a forgotten skirmish. My life was now consumed by a singular, all-encompassing, feathered vendetta. My new war was with Clarence, the great blue heron. At first I thought, he's just passing through. He was not. I had, as Brenda so astutely pointed out, opened and season, all-you-can-eat sushi bar. And Clarence was the first and most loyal customer. The next morning, Spot was gone. The day after that, my beautiful butterfly fin asagi had vanished. My habitat was a $40,000 bird feeder. "This," I declared to Sarah, "is war." First, I bought a fake owl, a big plastic one with realistic glowing eyes. I put it on the perching rock. I came out the next morning to find that Clarence had, well, he had defecated on the owl. It was a clear, unambiguous message. He was not afraid of Hootie. "He's mocking me, Sarah. The bird is mocking me." Next, I bought a motion-activated sprinkler. The Scarecrow, it was called. "The sudden yet harmless spray of water scares away any pest," the box promised. I set it up, aimed directly at the perching rock. That afternoon, I watched from the window as Clarence landed. The Scarecrow hiss-thwacked and shot a stream of water right at him. Clarence just stood there. He let the water mist him. He looked like he was enjoying it. He thought it was a bidet, a pre-dinner rinse. He then proceeded to eat another one of my backup goldfish. I was losing the war. Badly. My tranquil paradise was a source of constant bird-based anxiety. Finally, I gave in. I did the one thing I swore I'd never do. I bought the net. It wasn't a net. It was an industrial-grade avian deterrent system. It was black, ugly, and spanned the entire 20x20 lake. It required stakes and guide wires, and it looked awful. It looked like a circus tent had collapsed in my backyard. My glorious aesthetic pond was now a maximum security prison for the 3 remaining and very traumatized fish. I was out there one afternoon, trying to untangle a leaf from the ugly, ugly net, when I heard a voice. "Tough day at the buffet?" It was Brenda. She was on her side of the property line, sipping an iced tea. She wasn't smiling, exactly, but she wasn't scowling. "Go ahead, Brenda," I sighed, not looking up. "Laugh it up. You won." She was quiet for a long time. The only sound was the roar of my waterfalls, slightly muffled by the net. "You know," she said, so quietly I almost didn't hear her, I haven't heard Gary and Number 4's yappy dog in a week." I stopped. I looked up. "What?" "His little thing," she said, gesturing with her glass. "It's a Yorkie. It never stops. Yip, 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 all day, all night. It drives me insane. But since you turned that—" She pointed at my waterfalls. "I can't hear it anymore. Your noise is drowning out his noise." She took a sip. "It's the first time I've read a book on my porch in 5 years, so—" She cleared her throat. "Thank you." She thanked me? I said, dumbfounded. You're welcome, Brenda?" "But that net," she said, her old self returning. "It's hideous. You should really submit a form for that. It's definitely not an approved structure." She turned and walked back to her house. It wasn't a friendship, but it was a truce. A truce built on the mutual hatred of a yappy dog and the soothing, deafening roar of 200 gallons of water per minute. Which brings us to today. It's 102 degrees again. The lake is gurgling under its giant, ugly circus net. The waterfalls are roaring so loud I've developed a permanent low-grade tinnitus. I'm spending a fortune on electricity for the pump, and another fortune on premium fish pellets for my 3 remaining prisoners. I am, by any objective measure, a miserable failure. I'm sitting on my back deck. Sarah comes out, holding 2 beers. She hands one to me. "Still zen, honey?" she asks, a smirk playing on her lips. "Shut up," I say. But I'm smiling. "Look what I found." I point. Tucked in the corner of the deck, hidden from view by a large potted plant, is my new purchase. It's a Blue Lagoon Deluxe, 10-foot, 2-foot deep, 49.99 inflatable pool. Sarah's eyes go wide. "Frank, You didn't." "I did," I said, taking a long, victorious sip of my beer. I read the binder again. Article 4, Section 9, the one she got me on? No temporary structures shall be erected or maintained upon any lot. A lot, Frank, is defined as the ground. The deck, I said, tapping my foot on the wood, is part of the permanent house structure per Article 2, Section 5. It's not on the lot. It's on the house. "Frank," Sarah said, sitting down in the lawn chair next to me, "you are a sick, twisted man." "I know," I said, grinning from ear to ear, "but I'm a sick, twisted man with a pool that is 100% compliant with the covenants." I looked over at Brenda's house. She was in her window. She saw the pool. She saw me. She just shook her head, a slow, defeated motion, and closed the blinds. "Checkmate, Brenda. Checkmate."